Are we making goofy faces?
We are. Coming up in this video, what does it mean when your third eye is overactive?
Oh boy, are we going to clear some myths up today, kids?
Boom. So this is a part of our third eye playlist, How to Grow Your Third Eye. And if you watch the whole playlist, we'll show you some new science that will blow your third eye blind.
You can find the full playlist below. If you guys are just getting to know us, I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From ZenRoseGarden.com. It's your turn. So for all our Zen heads and Zen Head Academy.
Zen Head Academy.
That's
a new thing.
Let us know you're here with the hashtag ZenHead4Life.
And if you're watching live, give us a hashtag LiveTribe.
And if you're watching on the replay, give us a hashtag ReplayFam. Notice how we've switched those lately? You
yes.
Say the replay.
I know.
I'll be David. I was David.
Okay.
We decided to do this series for our hashtag YouTube fam because we get so many questions about it. But regardless, the brain is the starting point. And without the brain, you can't do psychic stuff on the planet, right? So
or function.
Right, or function. Without the brain.
Without the brain, you can't live.
Right.
In this body.
You could be in a jar like a psychic
all right.
sci-fi head. So this whole week, we are going to talk about different parts of the brain that activate during the classic mystic experience or the intuitive, empathic, or psychic experience.
And it's not what you think. And we mean that. Because we watch all of the not what you think mystic videos, right?
And it isn't what they think either. So we're going to tell you how the brain functions in psychic activity. So now that we have totally flipped the pancake over, we want to know, have you ever had a sudden third eye opening? And that's when you're going along, you're normal, something traumatic happens, or maybe you were doing something extra and it just
recreational.
Went boom, recreational, and it just went boom, like what happens at
like an RTV,
like
ATV.
What happens at the EDC, the Electric Daisy Carnival every year.
They go on ATVs and
take a little something
out in the desert.
That's a daisy, and then you go.
We're not talking about that. All right. So let us know if you've ever had any kind of an experience where your third eye seemed to suddenly open. Okay, you sensed more things. You were picking up on emotions. You were maybe hearing people's thoughts in your head.
And I want to know also in the comments, I'm adding an addendum.
Oh boy.
Did you love it? Was it like, whoa, look at all the colors, man? Or did you go, oh my gosh, I'm terrified?
I absolutely loved it every single time.
Yeah, I want to know which one.
I have never to this date had a bad trip. I've had bad experiences in life, but I've never had a bad trip.
I've always loved it, mainly because my family was scarier than anything I've seen in the psychic world. So nothing scared me.
And by trip, I mean psychic opening.
Okay. So it isn't that it happens suddenly or even in a shocking way, right?
Right.
It's what we're trying to talk about today is it's noticing how you react when it does.
So let's talk about it.
So we're going to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
First, let's talk about feelings and emotions that might happen when you open the third eye and why your first impulse is to freak out.
And this is the important part.
Maybe, because your first impulse may not always be to freak out, but we're talking about the freak out today.
I feel like the talking about your feelings, I feel like we're going to do like a psychic Mr. Rogers episode or something. Let's talk about your feelings and emotions. Okay.
Anyway.
So because here's what the thing is. It is not what you are sensing. Mm-hmm. It is how you are reacting and assigning value to what you are sensing.
Right. And because the human mind, when left untrained, will automatically go to a primal place and react with any of those unprocessed fears in less than 1 second to an unfamiliar situation or sensation, right?
And we bring this up because a lot of people experience this fear or this like perceived danger when they open the third eye and they see a lot of things or they sense a lot of new things that they don't know what they are. They react, but they're not reacting with the third eye, they're reacting with a different part of the brain. So
and we'll get into that part in a minute.
In just a second. So without taming the beast, okay, which is like the scary response, you will keep reacting that way in less than 1 second.
Yes.
And it will get worse and you will be stuck with kind of an overactive gift, what we call the overactive third eye, that you can't really use appropriately or even leave the house with.
Right.
You're so sensitive.
So when we say that the third eye is overactive, it may just simply be that the reactions that you're having, those primal fight or flight responses, are overstimulated.
So this is the bigger field, the part of the brain itself, and they've done brain scans on this,
right?
That is overreacting to what you are sensing in a different part of your brain is the limbic system.
Right.
So it responds in a kind of a fear-based way to something that you don't understand, depending on what you got stored back there.
Right.
Okay.
So when the third eye opens and we have a bad trip, for example, and maybe out at a party, you've known some people that have had a bad trip, and we have some perceived dangers, what exactly is happening in the brain? Are they real dangers or are they just perceived danger?
So to clarify what we mean is when we say open,
Mhm.
we mean when you shift from a single state of awareness.
Right.
Okay. So what we're in right now, we're talking to each other most of the time when you're in conversation, you're in normal state of mode. That's a single state of awareness.
Called monophasic.
And so we're going to throw big words. Okay. So, but when you slip into those states where you kind of sense more things,
Right.
you get more aware of sounds on a deeper level, maybe clairvoyance, different sort of other awarenesses or
Mhm.
consciousnesses, you
Mhm.
slip into multiple states of awareness.
Polyphasic.
So very often that's a very gentle thing. Like we can access those states when we go from waking to sleeping.
Yep.
And when you intentionally train it, you can kind of toggle in a more intentional way.
In a more conscious way.
So when we say open, we mean it's like more aware of it. So
Right.
it's basically something made you more aware of that other state of awareness.
It's basically
okay?
your spidey senses are tingling because it got triggered because of something, whether that was a stimulus or whether that was an external, any stimulus, internal, external, whatever the stimulus was, it's probably not an actual threat.
So when the third,
Most of the time.
because there's this like when it happens really abruptly,
Mhm.
a lot of things happen and we notice it a lot more than when
Like
we're
in the
just
60s.
because when our third eye is active all the time. Okay. So there isn't anybody, and if you're dead, your third eye is closed. Okay. So your third eye has a range of capabilities.
Mhm.
So just having a sensation, a knowing, that's kind of on a lower scale. It may
Mhm.
just be like a hunch. That's
Mhm.
sort of like the low end of like a third eye experience. And then on the far end is maybe you're totally in bliss and at one with the universe. So there's this whole range of third eye experience.
Right. And Ravi had asked, so do you two claim to have your third eye open?
Everybody's third eye
Absolutely.
is open to some degree.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people tell you. If your third eye is closed, you're dead.
Raylene says, like the 60s. She's quoting me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, okay. So in the 60s, when there was a lot of psychedelic opening or drugs that opened up the mind, more and more people were having these big, huge experiences. And if they didn't have anything that was bad in their life or had resolved a lot of their fears, they didn't have a bad trip. Those who have a bad trip are ones that have unresolved fears under the surface, and their limbic system and their fight or flight response is getting triggered automatically as if this was a real threat.
Well, an intense experience with the third eye can happen in any kind of trauma, like after a divorce or an accident or a life-changing thing, because what happens is your subconscious is thrust to the forefront and you're really in touch with all those third eye functions. So it can be very all of a sudden dramatic when before it's just kind of functioning. You get some intuition, you get some hits. It's sort of whatever's normal for you.
Right.
There are people that train it to be hypersensitive, like mediums and intuitives and sensitive practitioners. So, but when the third eye is suddenly thrust into awareness,
either intentionally or through some trauma that elicits a spiritual awakening experience, the limbic system, which includes the amygdala, right, that fight or flight response, lights up with feeling and emotion.
So this is where we get into trouble with thinking that there's a big danger, because that limbic system is boom, it's fast. The limbic system is what gives us the feeling when the limbic system is activated. I'll tell you, we're going to get a little sciencey today.
Yes.
When the limbic system is activated, it is what gives us the feeling that what we are sensing and feeling has a very tangible substance to it of some kind.
It is real in the mind, okay?
Right.
It also senses the feelings and emotions of others, but it also sits right next to that easily triggered fight or flight center. And this is the oldest part of the brain. It rules instinct, your primal spidey senses, feeling and emotion, right?
So what happens when that's really overactive, right? What happens when you kind of have a lot of unresolved things is that lights up really fast when you have a sudden third eye experience. So they kind of muddy up the waters and your clarity. So if you haven't worked on your own demons and old superstitions and fears about people and religious superstitions or whatever, you're scared of ponies, then the dangers you perceive seem to be more real than they are.
But they're probably not.
Okay,
right?
So they can become real
if you don't do something about the reactions. The real danger right, is the danger to your long-term mental, emotional, social, and spiritual health.
So this is important to know as you're starting to learn how to do any kind of psychic or intuitive work, because those kinds of things can pop up for you. And that's the real work, is to work on those fears. Because what blocks your third eye the most are your fears, because they get in the way and they go, no, 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 no. That's scary and new.
Didn't you read an article about that? There was an article about shamans went to the asylum, right?
Right.
And when you look at the article itself, it's like, there's, I mean, it's been taken and misconstrued so many times, but basically the shaman was coming in here and was like, there are so many shamans in here. There are so many people that are connected, but because they haven't worked on their gifts, that's why they're here. So in a nutshell, he was like, this is what happens when you don't work on your stuff.
So you can be very, very open, but your fears kind of get in the mix. So you've got two parts of the brain that are active at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's why in tradition, you would go to the shaman, you work on your stuff, you go in the cave, you work on your fears.
Work on your self-growth.
That way you strip away those things that are blocking essentially the third eye. So why is this such a problem? You can see that this is a problem, and you see a lot of empath support groups online, because it's that limbic system is overactive. So being an empath alone is not the problem.
Empathy comes from a more evolved part of the mind, and we'll talk about that in upcoming videos. The problem is that old limbic system is getting all up in your empathy and hijacking your gift.
So whenever that overstimulation happens, so that's what happens with a lot of overactive empaths, is that limbic system is overactive. So this overactive third eye is not so much a third eye that seems too much. It's the primal untamed response of an overly active limbic system. It just gets cross-wired. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. It is firing away and assigning value to other people's emotional states, because, it doesn't have enough work to do on its own emotional state. So it's got to reach out to everybody else's. And it does this in less than a second, based on all of your previously stored experiences. It is not a saber-toothed tiger. It's just Steve having a really bad day. Oh, Steve.
But who's Steve?
Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, Steve. Okay. So this is the thing that I see blocking a lot of very gifted empaths and intuitives, because you should be able to just tune into people's emotions. We feel other people's emotions. Empathy is a gift, and it's more of an evolved gift.
Right.
So it's a gift where you can sense emotions. It's highly useful for any kind of healer, because you're able to empathize with people's emotions.
It's not healthy when it's all dialed in to your fight or flight center.
So this video itself is not about necessarily empaths. It's about what the limbic system can do with your third eye gifts, whether it's empathy or anything. So your primal instinct is in the limbic system. Mm-hmm. And here's why it's so hard to kick its ass. Okay. It evolved to aid your survival.
Right.
And it ruled the human brain for 150 million years.
And still does for many people.
Because you see people running around just ruled by their limbic system.
So when it's good, you're good.
So let me clarify, there's nothing wrong with the limbic system.
Or your spidey senses.
Because the limbic system rules a lot of really important things that we need in our life. Mm-hmm. But when it's bad, when it's running the show, you're paranoid.
You're all paranoid and crap. I mean, come on.
And
so when it's tied into that fight or flight system so deeply, when it's ingrained, and that fight or flight system is the one that is the first that gets the notice, hey, we got something going on here, you're going to freak out. If other parts of your brain that are more evolved, and we'll talk about those in another video, when those parts get the first signal, then you are golden. Limbic system response is fast, right? It's efficient, and it is pre-programmed with tens of millions of years of looking for threats and fighting saber-toothed tigers.
And that's why we continue to struggle with it in the intuitive arts, because
it's the most trained.
It's the most trained, right? And it's the most on automatic. So it was only about 100 to 200,000 years ago, which is a very short time in the evolution of the brain, that these regions of the brain evolved that show activity in brain scans when people access higher brain functions like mysticism, like logic. This is where empathy is stored, reason, imagination, higher intuitive skills, compassion. Those all reside and light up the different parts of the brain that evolved only the last 100,000 to 200,000 years. So
compared to millions and millions of years,
this is why we sit and do our work, right? And meditate and work on that. So
this little part of the brain,
it's a tiny little baby.
Super tiny little baby, right? And it is neurologically vulnerable and slow when compared to the emotional parts of the brain that have been, cranking it out for millions of years.
So this is our battle with the two brains that we train in the psychic arts.
Epic battle.
So it is an epic battle. So these baby areas of the brain have to battle old, ancient limbic system urges to trigger fear or even aggression. So how do we tame it?
The one thing that wins is the one that you nurture. Okay. Right. So advice to the overactive empath.
So it's been shown that dwelling on your emotional vulnerability, like all of us have been through emotional vulnerability, but if we dwell on it, it causes the limbic system to dominate because it's the limbic, oh, you need me, you need me, you need me. So it keeps reacting.
Right.
So it's even been shown that over time in a lot of neuroscience studies that you begin to lose the neurological ability to think logically and act compassionately.
You are creating and injecting neurotoxins into your brain based on fear. So if you keep feeding the fear, you keep damaging your brain. So it is nearly impossible to find peace if your mind is constantly looking for a threat, even if it's subconsciously. It takes less than 1 second to assign that value of fear.
And you're not doing it intentionally. It's coming from stored old stuff, right? So you already have a subconscious value that might be old and you're not even aware of anymore, that you don't even think about, stored in that database.
It is a vicious loop. It is cured.
Here's how you cure it.
By contemplation, observing and evaluating those reactions and working on your demons.
Denise
says, what is your opinion on diet for keeping your third eye open and clear of blockages? Does it matter?
I think here's how it matters. It matters because the healthier your body can be, the less pain and resistance there is. So the more relaxed you are to let that those subconscious, things stay open.
But my take on it is don't get too caught up in it. Okay. Because keeping your body healthy, yes, keep your body healthy. Okay. Give it the best chance possible, but don't get so focused on, I have to eat this way, I have to do this way, I have to do all of these so that you can have your third eye open. Okay. Your third eye is open anyway. You can accent it with the food that you eat and make it better with the food that you eat. But work on the fears underneath. You're going to get a bigger return on your investment by working on your fears than you are changing your diet.
Yeah, we find the biggest thing that blocks fears is blocks the third eye and clarity are your fears and all your stuff because we don't even know that it's responding. Yes, diet, exercise, all that stuff. You are the vessel for information, right?
Absolutely beneficial.
It's beneficial. Is it the main thing? No, but it is a very important thing.
It is very important, but there are other things that you can do if you haven't built your foundation yet. Focus on the things that are going to give you the biggest return first, then dial into your diet. Let's see, Starseed said, mine can be dialed in. Absolutely, anybody's can with practice and with working on your demons.
And here's the thing about those two parts of your brain. You have to continually maintain it by doing your spiritual practices because one has so much more history than the other. We're at the state in our evolution as humankind that we are evolving, right? So it needs more time to grow up. So our brains are evolving into a new brain,
right?
But that takes a long time. So we need to keep practicing our spiritual practices to tame the beast.
So what makes fear and repressed anger problematic is that it can blind you to the fact that you're even angry or really afraid, right? Can you say true third eye blinding?
Oh, geez, I knew I was going to find a pun. That's true because we have very complex brains. And when we have anger and fear, it blocks us from doing our daily activities. So we find all sorts of ways to cope with it. And sometimes it gets so stored, we don't even really see that it's there.
We're really good at defending it, right? So this is why the wax on, wax off of self-growth has always been an essential part of training. But with the internet, everybody's looking for that magic quick opener, that super quick fix.
So let's drop this nugget real quick before we go. When you experience any kind of spiritual high, okay, in big letters, that is stimulated by an external substance like ayahuasca, I'm just going to say the word, it does two things. First, it does stimulate a newer part of your brain that connects you to the inner mystic, Right.
But it also overly stimulates your limbic system, and it can get stuck there.
And that's why, because when you do that kind of thing, it overly stimulates and wakes up that limbic system, which makes you feel the emotions. It gets you really tapped into the clairsentient, the feeling part of your clairs.
So it feels real. So this is why this is not a quick fix to opening if you are not going through the patience of sitting, contemplation, and working on those hidden fears.
Right. So we're not saying don't do it, but understand that if it gets stuck open and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I can't close it. It's like, now everything's so intense. It's because you got to do some work of stabilizing it.
And FYI, it takes about 3 months to 6 months. What we've noticed from certain clients that have gone on different medicine trips, it takes about 3 months to 6 months to stabilize each event.
I want to say Chandra the Strange. I eat like a raccoon. And
like Jackie Chan.
Chandra, like chakra.
No, like
Chandra.
Like Jackie Chan.
I keep forgetting Chandra.
I eat like a raccoon and vape 24/7, and I'm wide TF open. Don't get caught up in the hype. Take care of yourself, though.
Yeah, see, I agree. Yes. I think when you get caught up in the hype, you get caught up in the fear.
Right.
You have to do what's right for you and your body and what feels good. I mean, I know people that smoke like smokestacks and they're like amazing mediums. So,
yes. Back when I was smoking and doing, very unhealthy eating habits, I was still very open. It's not about what you're doing. It's about how much in line it feels for you. Did I get more open when I quit smoking? Absolutely. Did it make me better? Absolutely. But did it stop me and block me? No.
Growing that part of your brain is really about maintaining the practice.
Yes.
Like I said, maintaining your spiritual practice. And It's a Marathon says, how can you work on these fears? Just meditation. Meditation is a really, really good place tool to start because what it does when you meditate for at least 12 minutes a day, but when you meditate, you lengthen the time between
the stimulus
and the third eye and that limbic system response. So that's what the work is about, is lengthening the time.
Giving yourself more time between the thought and the reaction.
Because you want that 1 second to go away, to be like, oh, I see that I'm having a freak out. Let me see what that freak out is and get rid of it so it won't pop in the next time.
So we find that when you understand the function of the mystical parts of your brain, it becomes a hell of a lot easier to access it.
Just swipe away all the like funky stuff.
Swipe left.
And just get straight to what you're.
I don't know what you're watching on. Probably this one.
I'm doing this thing. No, so we are living in a new age where we actually do know how.
Welcome to the new age.
How this stuff works on a chemical brain level, right? We do know how it works and exactly what parts of the brain are firing when you tap in.
You just have to strip away all of the old superstitious mumbo jumbo, grow your brain, chill out, and tap in. Chandra says, there's a part of me who actually really enjoys freakouts because it is the best way for me to get a clear understanding of what parts I need to look at.
Yes, you get to that point
where Chandra with the win.
With the knowledge. So when you do, you get to a point where you have these freakouts enough that you work on them. And then when you see one come up, you go, boom, baby, let me work on that one because that will make me even more badass when I clear it away. So
I always say those are your golden nuggets. It's not about whether or not you're going to freak out, but what you do when that thing happens. Ravi says, I usually meditate when I'm high from marijuana and enjoy it more. I feel like I go deeper. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. Just understand what you're doing and whether or not you're using any kind of a drug as a crutch, or are you able to access those those deeper modes on a consistent basis without?
Well, and I think different substances act differently, and marijuana is a lot more general.
And different people respond.
Yeah, I'm super sensitive to those.
She can't do anything.
Yeah. So with marijuana, some people it's very gentle, and some people, and it does relax you. With others, it just depends on the person. If it's working for you, then do it. So probably what you're doing is you're accessing those parts of the brain we're going to talk about on Thursday.
Right.
And you're also accessing that limbic system, which feels really good.
Yes.
When you access it, because that's where those feelings and emotions are.
That's why it feels like it goes deeper, right? But you can access this similar states of mind that go even deeper than that when you build on the part that we're going to talk about on Thursday. Chandra, don't equate the weed to the need.
Right. So we keep it really balanced.
Are we talking about weed? Awesome. Will be legal in Illinois, January 1st, 2020.
I love how you guys that just joined us are like, oh, they're talking about pot. And that's
because Blazing Turtle came
I know.
All right. So it's your brain. It's how it works, right? Be sure to join us as we nerd out with the mystical third eye meets neuroscience.
We'll be back to chop it up with our hashtag YouTube fam faster than 2 shakes of a unicorn's tail after he's pooped rainbow frosting on your carpet. Boom.
It is super not pretty. So check out the link below for Zen Ed Academy. It's Marathon says, I find I experience more things when I meditate before sleep and get really sleepy, but yet I'm still awake.
Yes.
And that is the most beautiful time to do that, because that is the time where the changeover happens between your waking state and your sleeping state, which has direct access to your subconscious mind, which also has direct access to your superconscious mind, where all the cool stuff happens.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the last video on the pineal gland, we do talk about the chemicals the brain is producing.
If you liked this video, hit that like button.
And if you have questions about Zen Ed Academy, I said it right, book a quick call below to see if it is right for you.
And for more live hangouts, behind the scenes secrets, and mind hacking pro tips,
Literally this week, be sure to subscribe.
And clickety click the bell, bing, 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 to turn notifications on
So you are the first to know.
when we drop a new video.
Or go live.
And before we wrap it up, I wanted to touch on Blazing Turtle one more time. Does it work the other way, like going from sleeping to being awake? Yes, it does. And those are kind of great entry points to do any kind of a meditation. Even if you do like a 5-minute meditation before you go to sleep, or right when you wake up before you actually get out of bed, those are beautiful moments. Beautiful moments to access those deeper parts of your brain.
One quick little tip for you guys. If you're having a hard time accessing your intuition and your third eye, it is a quick mind hack to set the intention for some kind of work right before you go to sleep. So your conscious mind can get the heck out of the way.
And your subconscious mind can start to work.
And your subconscious mind will take the directive and start working on what it needs to work on, because the subconscious mind processes information like billions of times faster than your conscious mind.
And Vanessa says, there it is, the B-Box. Yeah. I look forward to it every time I watch. I look forward to doing it for you.
He had a meltdown the other day when
she took it. She jacked it from me. She jacked my B-Box moment.
If you didn't see it, he had a total meltdown.
Go find that video, because I don't remember which one it was. Anyway, we know that time is a valuable and precious resource. And the fact that you guys have chosen to spend that with us, we absolutely honor and appreciate that in all of our weirdo silliness. But most importantly, that you're here to level up your skills, take your life, your meditation, your mind, everything to an entirely new level. We honor and appreciate that even more. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video over here or over here.
We'll see you in the next video. Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of wherever you are today.
Boom, boom.